Hey everyone, welcome back to All Things Academic. I'm Erica, aka Professor Lloyd. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if this is your second time, if you've already been here, welcome back. On my channel, we talk about academic lifestyle and planning for passion and productivity. In today's video, we're going to talk about how I paid off $100,000 in student loan debt. $100,000. So before we get started, if you like this video, give this video a thumbs up so that other people can find the content or consider subscribing, and let's get into it. My top 5 tips for paying off student loans, and I'll be giving you 2 bonus tips that I wish I had known before I started my journey. So let's get into it. Tip number 1, when I graduated from my PhD program, I owed $100,000 in student loan debt. And you might think, oh, Erica, that's not that much money because professors make so much money. My first job right out of my PhD program was in a prestigious NIH postdoc, and I think I made around $30,000 or $32,000. That was the going rate when I graduated. So when I got that first student loan payment, which does happen, so you graduate 6 months after your graduation date, they send you a bill. That bill comes in the mail or you get it through your email. And you get that bill, and it was way more than I could possibly pay on my postdoc salary. So the first tip is to get intimate and personal with your student loans. So as scary as that might sound, open up those student loans, look through the terms of your lending, look through what you owe. You want to know what your interest rates are, whether they are fixed or variable. You want to know which loans are subsidized, unsubsidized, but you really want to get intimate and personal with your student loans. So you want to know how much you owe, when those payments are due. Because one thing that's important, if you cannot make the payment, there are some programs that can help you, which I'll talk about in just a second. So my first tip is to get intimate with those loans. Our tendency might be to run away as soon as we get that first bill, but it's really important to open up that bill, look at your student loans, and assess how much you have. And you may have different lenders. So get intimate with all of the different lenders and their terms and conditions. Tip number 2, which is my biggest tip. My biggest tip is to consider looking into loan repayment programs. There are many different types of loan repayment programs. The one that I got when I was a first-year professor is an NIH loan repayment program. So NIH LRP, if you're interested, I'll put a link to that program below. So that's just one program that you can consider. They pay a portion of your student loans as long as you do health-related research. So that's one mechanism to consider. And I had no idea that that program even existed when I finished my PhD. I actually didn't learn about it until I was a postdoc. And another postdoc told me, since we do health research, you should look into doing the NIH loan repayment program. But there are many other repayment programs that exist. So there's the public service loan forgiveness program, which is another option. So I would say look into these different options. Some employers also are required to give a certain portion. So sometimes people don't know that their employers can actually give a portion to their employees' student loans. Ask around, look into your employee benefits, and see if there is any money that exists out there for loan repayment. I know lots of people are waiting to find out what's going to happen with the US government's loan repayment, and that would be a great benefit to many families and many people. But while we're waiting and trying to figure out what the government's going to do, look into these other options as well, because as I said, there are many options for loan repayment in addition to the government's loan repayment that you can consider. Now, I will say with these programs, each program has its own restrictions and conditions, and it's really important that you understand what all of the different conditions and restrictions are for each one of those programs, but they are really beneficial if you're able to secure one. Third tip is to consider, if you are able to, overpaying monthly. One thing that you can do is, if you are able to pay a little bit more every month, and it's one thing that I did, you can consider overpaying every month beyond the minimum payment that you have to make. So overpaying on those student loans can help move you faster to paying them off. Tip number 4 is to make extra payments, which sounds crazy. Why would we make extra payments? Well, just like tip number 3, which was to overpay, tip number 4, which is make extra payments, really just helps you pay off your loans faster. So one thing that I did that really helped me pay off my student loans much more quickly, in addition to loan repayment programs, is that every time I got some extra teaching money in the summer, or anytime I got some extra money from consulting or other things that I would do, or even gifts, I would save that money, stockpile that money, and throw it towards my student loans. And that's actually how I was able to pay them off at the end. So I was able to pay them off more quickly at the end because I took that extra money and I threw it at my student loans. Tip number 5 is to consider consolidating, because when you consolidate your loans, oftentimes, especially if you consolidate under government programs like Fed loans, for example, they actually pay off your loans, which may be private loans, maybe different types of loans. So look into those consolidation programs to see if that's even an option. I would really, just like that first tip, which is to get intimate with your loans and to understand how much you owe and know what those variable and fixed interest rates are. Think about the consequences of consolidating your loans. So if you are under a government program, a government forgiveness program, and you consolidate your loans under a government program, those loans will qualify. However, if you consolidate loans with a spouse, for example, you may not be able to consider those loans under your loan forgiveness. So my advice is to look into all of the different conditions that are involved in consolidating, even thinking about refinancing, which can also really benefit your interest rates and can allow you to pay off faster. But if you refinance your loans, for example, under a private lender, they may not qualify for some loan forgiveness programs because they don't take private loans. I would look into all of the different conditions before you follow that route. So those were my 5 tips. So number 1, get intimate and personal and knowledgeable with the conditions of your loans. Tip number 2 is to consider those loan repayment programs that may exist under public service loan forgiveness, NIH programs. There's lots of different programs like Teach for America, for example. There's lots of different loan forgiveness programs that can help you pay off your loans faster. Tip number 3 is to overpay monthly if you're able to. So if you're under some programs, you may be paying the minimum payment, but if you're able to pay a little bit more, you want to look and see if you're able to apply that to your principal, not to the interest necessarily, but if you can help pay those down a little bit faster. Number 4 is to make extra payments if you're able to. So if you get some unexpected money, not that you should live like a pauper, but if you make extra money that you weren't expecting and you can take a portion of that and you can apply that to your student loans and it would help you pay your loans off faster, that might be a faster way to help you. Number 5 is to consider consolidating under a program if that would benefit you and help you to pay it off faster. So my 2 bonus tips that I wish I had known before I graduated. The first tip is to beware lifestyle creep. When I graduated and I was a postdoc, my first job paid about $32,000 over time, just based on increase in income and based on moving from being a postdoc to being a full-time faculty member. Obviously, over time, you will make more money. And so you just want to beware the lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is where you start to make more money over time and your lifestyle expands in accordance with the amount of money you make. So if you make more money, you might be inclined to drive a nicer car, move to a nicer neighborhood or more expensive neighborhood. You might be inclined to buy a more expensive house. You might be inclined to take more trips and eat in more expensive restaurants. So you should absolutely enjoy everything that you worked so hard for. And when I graduated and I was paying off my student loans, I certainly enjoyed myself. I went on trips. I went on international trips. I saw friends. I did many things, had many family emergencies, but I was still focused on paying off my loans. So you want to balance your responsibilities and making sure that you don't let your lifestyle expand to fill all available funds that are present. Tip number 2 was something that I really wished I had known when I was a student, to only take out what you absolutely need. So that was something that I didn't even consider when I was an undergraduate, a graduate student, getting my master's or my PhD. You don't actually have to take out all of that money unless you absolutely need it. So I had friends that in undergrad were buying cars with their student loans, or going to restaurants and doing lots of things. And many times we were absolutely not thinking about paying off those loans because graduation was so far off. Why would you think about your student loans? But know that eventually you will have to pay back those student loans. So at the bare minimum, let's say we took out $120,000. You're actually paying back more than $120,000 because of interest rates. So we want to keep our loans, if possible, to the bare minimum. And they are really to support our life and to support our ability to get through school. Those were my 5 tips for paying back your student loans. As I said, I paid back my student loans, which were over $100,000. And I was able to pay them back in about 9 years doing the 5 tips that I just shared. And hopefully those 2 bonus tips that I wish that I had known are beneficial to you. So as I said, if you like this content, give us a like so that other people can find their way to this video. And hopefully this is helpful to you, and consider subscribing and join us on the journey as we talk about more things related to academic lifestyle, things that may impact us as academics, and planning for passion and productivity. Again, I'm Erica, aka Professor Lloyd, and have a great rest of your week.